Welcome everybody, good to see so many familiar and new faces in one room. Also hello to the people online, not sure where you are. Indeed, I will be telling some key learnings we have learned so far from our GrowWise Research Center in Eindhoven on how to grow wisely in the end, or how our customers can grow wisely. Does it work? It works. So a little bit about myself. I'm Jarno Mooren, plant specialist for 4 years now within the Department of Vertical Farming. And before that, a background in plant sciences at Wageningen, at Leo Marcelis group. And before that, at the Haas University, studying applied biology. Yep, so Signify Horticulture, you can know us from the many greenhouse projects we do in floriculture, and fruits and vegetables, and bio-based crops. But right now I will be, of course, focusing on what we call city farming or vertical farming. I really liked the talk of Art this morning about how we should place the crop in the middle, because actually that's also our approach. We put the crop in the middle, we look at the specifications of the crop that our customer wants, and around that we try to optimize the growth recipe. And as a lighting supplier, of course, we look at the lighting first. And within lighting you can look at many things like the PPFD, the photo period, so together the DLI, the daily light integral, and the spectrum. And if we zoom in on the spectrum, everything works, fantastic. And we look, for example, in this graph at the blue percentage in the spectrum. We can learn that with more blue, we actually reduce the fresh weight. So it's the blue weight the blue percentage on the x-axis and the fresh weight in this case on the y-axis. But we know also from rules presentation that production isn't everything. And we also should focus on quality of the crop. And what we did see is that, for instance, the dry matter percentage increased over blue percentage. And, well, dry matter percentage isn't maybe the most important thing, you would say, because you're selling the fresh weight, not the dry weight. But the dry matter percentage is linked to many qualitative aspects within the crop, like shelf life, for example, that is also increasing along with the dry matter percentage. And this graph tells us and we learn from it that there is not one single holy grail for growing lettuce in this example. That we really have to look at the crop characteristics that the customer demands from us. So if he wants to focus on fresh weight, then we could reduce the blue spectrum, and if he wants to focus on shelf life, we could increase the blue spectrum. So it's really about playing with the spectrum to optimize your quality and your quantity of production. Then next to lighting, very important is the genetics of the crop. So also within the crop we can play with different parameters like the genetics to see the effect on the performance of that crop. Therefore we work together with a lot of breeders. We do a lot of variety screenings together with those breeders to screen early on new varieties that they are introducing into the market. It may not be bred for vertical farming specifically, but also in the traditional varieties there are many good genetics that we can use for vertical farming. And within those variety screenings we can learn many things. There's an example of a lettuce screening that we did with different types of lettuce. You see on the horizontal axis and on the y-axis you see the tip burn resistance. So the higher the score, the better it performs against tip burn, and the lower the score, the more sensitive it is with tip burn. It's the burning of the edge of the leaf and something you don't want in lettuce. And we can actually learn two things from this graph. One thing is that there's many differences within crop types. So a Batavia or a Butterhead or a Kos are more difficult to grow than a crystal or a frill type of lettuce. But what we also can learn from this graph is that within those single types, so within a Batavia or within a Butterhead, you can grow it quite good without tip burn, as long as you select the right varieties. You can see that there is in this, in all the bars, there is some varieties that perform very good. So that's the importance of variety screening and selecting the right genetics for your system instead of making the system around the genetics. A third thing I would like to focus on is the logistics, like the plant density, the respacing, so the different stages of the plants, and also pre-harvest treatments. We've heard it a few times before today, how to increase the quality of the crop. And if you look at pre-harvest treatments, we can do many things. We can color the lettuce or any other crop that is usually growing red in nature, but in a vertical farm without all the stress from the outside factors like the climate or the UV or any other stress factors in the irrigation that makes a red lettuce red, are not present in the vertical farm, so we have to find other ways to color it. And we can do that quite successfully with pre-harvest treatment. So we grow the crop green during the biggest part of the growing cycle, the most efficient way, and only the last part of the growing cycle we color it red. And that is quite successful, as you can see in the anthocyanin index over here. What we also can do, besides coloring, so the outside of the crop appearance, we can also change the inside of the crop, so the nutritional value. You can see it here, that we can successfully reduce or at least influence the content of nitrate in lettuce. And on the other side, you can see that we can increase the vitamin C content in wild arugula in these cases. And that's only, again, during the last days of that growth cycle. So we grow it very efficiently, and only the last days we stress the plants with light to create these effects inside the plant. Another thing, very important in a vertical farm, of course, besides the lighting, the genetics, the logistics, is the irrigation. We have different nutrient recipes for different crops, for lettuces, for arugula, for tomato, for strawberry, all different nutrient recipes that we feed to the plants because they all require different nutrients in different stages. All crops need different growth system. A strawberry needs a different growth system than a lettuce or an arugula plant. And also, the substrate makes a big difference in how a crop performs or how the total system performs. And if we look at that growth system, we have learned that it is very important to have a facility, and we're very happy with the GrowWise Research facility we have, so we can test what we design. So we wanted to make a strawberry cell to grow strawberries. It looks very nice on renderings, on picture or on drawn pictures, but it's even better to see in real life that it works. That the design you make is actually working in real life. And it's really a team effort in our team, and also how we like to work around that customer with the technical support of application engineers that are able of making these nice drawings and making sure everything is well connected. A team effort of the business people that saw the gap in the market for strawberries and pushed for a cell like this, and a team effort in the plant specialist team that can now develop growth recipes for strawberries. Also how we like to work in a market around a customer with an application engineer, a key account manager, and a plant specialist. And this is how it looks now in full production. So it's 4 racks, 4 layers, divided by ceilings, so we can also apply different light recipes for doing research into different strawberry strategies. The 5th key learning I wanted to share with you is on climate. And this is something you have heard a lot before. You can play with CO2, you can play with temperature, you can play with relative humidity, all on macro level, but in the end, it all is about the microclimates, the climate that the plant is detecting and is determining its growth. And you might have seen this graph before today, a few times maybe, but the learning for us is really that it's key to have a customer-specific approach on when we translate our growth recipes towards the market. So once we develop a growth recipe in GrowWise, so with the different substrates, with the different growth system, irrigation recipes, light recipes, the different climate, it's still important to take into account the growth system of that customer, the climate system of that customer, and the way of growing of that customer. That translation is really important, and this graph is not really to show off that Signify grows the fastest or has the highest production. It's really to show that there is differences, or there can be differences between facilities if you apply the same microclimate. Then lastly, the missing dot, very trendy nowadays, control and data. With a vertical farm, we can measure everything, we can control everything, and a plant is not only something you harvest, it's also becoming a data point. And that's something that a lot of people are after, their data. Because with the data, you can predict the yield, you can monitor the crop, of course, and if you do it right, you can predict the yield quite accurately, and by that steering on a market demand. So when the market speeds up, you can also speed up your production, and when the market slows down, you could slow down your production. And with lighting, you can make it more dynamic, like we can do with our GrowWise control system to control the dynamic, or to control the spectrum and the intensity of the lights, to steer, for example, on customer-specific needs, like with the blue spectrum, increase blue for more quality, or decrease the blue for more production. You can follow the market demand at that time by changing the light recipe when you have a new crop. If you want to grow a new crop, you can change the light recipe. Or when we find a new variety that performs even better than the variety you were already growing, that needs a different light recipe, you can change the light recipe. And you could also optimize the light recipes for different stages of the plant. So increase the light level when the plant is growing, or change your light recipe, your spectrum, your intensity in the last days before harvest, in a pre-harvest period, to increase your color, increase your nutritional value, or increase your shelf life. So, summarized, the key learnings from GrowWise on how to grow wisely. One, spectrum does make a difference, and it's very important to select the right spectrum, or the right light recipe for your crop. Selecting the right genetics is important, and could save you some trouble if you select the wrong variety, which is really not performing well in a system. You can try to turn all kind of knots you have in a system, the temperature, the irrigation, the humidity, but changing the variety might be the easiest solution. You could increase your crop quality with your pre-harvest treatments, and it could be by changing the spectrum of the light, or by letting your plants gradually move towards a pre-harvest area with static lighting, but then the plant sees it as a dynamic journey towards the harvest. For us, executing design ideas in practice generates general system understanding. It's a difficult sentence, but basically it tells us that it's nice that we can put our ideas into practice to see if it actually works what we've designed on the drawing table. Number 5, no facility is the same. A customer-specific approach is needed. I think it's the emphasis of this meeting lies a bit around that microclimate until now. It's very important to have that translation step and make sure that what you put in the system is also what your plant is getting, or at least take into account that what you put in the system might be different than what the plant is perceiving. And lastly, dynamic lighting offers more flexibility for vertical farms, meaning that you can change crops, you can change the specifications of that crop, or change the quality, for example. And with this conclusion, I would like to thank you for your attention.